Good morning, 8th grade reading. How you doing today? Good, good. All right, so we are going to start our poetry unit. And what we're going to be talking about here, we're going to be applying language skills to narrate, describe, analyze, persuade, inform, entertain, and we're going to be expressing our feelings. And how we're going to do that, you're going to be reading a variety of literary works from different time periods and genres. Once we do that, you will be able to correctly identify literary devices and figurative language. And you're going to do that in a journal write, in an assessment, and you'll be able to get all of them correct. So once you do that, you'll be experts in poetry and you'll be able to say, I can infer the author's or speaker's meaning in a text. I can examine and discuss poetry and prose academically. Right now we're working on poetry. We will get to prose later in the lesson. I can express my inward and outward identity through writing poetry. So let's see where we go from here. All right, so I'm going to read this poem to you. It's called This Is Just to Say, and I just want you to pay attention to the image, whatever image that you draw from this poem. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, in which you probably were saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious, so sweet and so cold. So, take notice there. You see a bowl of plums here? You guys have a sample of plums at your desk. How did they taste? Oh, you don't like tasting plums? They tasted a little bitter to you? They were a little sweet and juicy, huh? I like that they were cold too. Yeah, they were a little crisp, huh? I kind of like that too. So, in what ways can we reach someone with our words? Let's find out how we can do that. I want you to list everything that you know about poetry from the literary perspective, literary devices and figurative language. Here is a graphic organizer that I've designed for you. There's several of them. You said you want pink? I got pink for you. There's a whole bunch here for you. You can decide which color graphic organizer that you want to work with. And I'm gonna give you maybe 3 minutes to discuss anything that you know about literary devices and figurative language. Time. Okay, our 3 minutes are done. So, what do you know about figurative language? You've never heard of it before? Okay, no problem. You've never heard of figurative language? All right, you heard about it in your art class? Oh, absolutely, okay. And what about in Mr. Roos's class? Absolutely. And you don't know what a literary device is? Not to worry. We are going to be learning a lot about literary devices and figurative language. So, I'm going to introduce 2 terms. We're not going to discuss them now, but I want to just give you a preview of some of the language that you're going to learn, which is why I was asking you to list what you know. And it's okay that you don't know anything about it right now, but as I said, you will learn. So we are going to be talking about, in the upcoming weeks, literary device, what it is, and give you some examples of that, and also figurative language, what that means, and how to use use it in literature. So, how about let's talk about what the simple effect can be in a poem. As in the poem that I read to you, there was a bowl of nice, juicy plums there. So let's have a quick discussion about it. You guys tell me what you thought about that. Time. All right, so our 3 minutes are done. Let's discuss. So, what were you thinking about? What do you think about how a simple effect in a poem can affect someone? You don't know? Okay, it's okay that you don't know. We're going to learn it. A simple effect. Boom, yes. A loud sound, and that made me jump too. Absolutely. What about you? You think you have an idea? Well, let's hear. Tell me what you think. You think a simple effect is one thing that can probably express feelings? I think you're on the right track. Let's see. William Carlos Williams. The poem that I recited, this is the gentleman that wrote that poem. So let's learn just a little bit about him, and then I will let you listen to the poem in a video.
William Carlos Williams was born in Rutherford, New Jersey on September 17, 1883. Having a father raised in the Dominican Republic and a mother in Puerto Rico, it's understandable how Williams was heavily influenced by Caribbean customs and culture as a child, so much so that he learned to speak Spanish before learning to speak English. Most of his primary and secondary education was received in Rutherford, but he attended several affluent schools in Europe, one of which was the Lycée Condorcet in Paris. And when he and his family returned to the States, he attended Horace Mann School, a private Ivy League preparatory school in New York. It was during this time here that he decided to become both a physician and a poet. After high school, he was admitted to the University of Pennsylvania in 1902 and graduated as a medical doctor in 1906. While completing his internship in pediatrics in both Europe and New York, he managed to publish his first book in 1909 entitled, wait for it, Poems. That's straight to the point, isn't it? A few years later, Williams married Florence Herman and settled in Rutherford. He published his second book of poetry, Tempers, in 1913, which was arranged by his friend and fellow poet Ezra Pound. The following year, he and Florence welcomed their first son, William, in 1914, and Paul came along in 1917. Williams practiced family medicine by day and wrote at night, a very practical thing to do, wouldn't you say? In his early publishings, his writing style of clear, precise language that awakened the senses put him at the forefront of the Imagist movement, which is a subgenre of poetry written during the Modernism period. But by 1920, Williams's writing style began to change, and he was criticized by his friends and colleagues who once praised his work. However, he continued to publish poetry, short stories, plays, essays, and even translations, but he struggled to find his audience. His ultimate goal was to invent a unique form of American poetry that focused on common people's everyday lives and demonstrated that the American language had a rhythm of its own. This is evident in two of his most popular poems, The Red Wheelbarrow and This Is Just to Say. Additionally, there are several highly acclaimed poetry collections of Williams's, such as Spring It All, The Desert Music and Other Poems, The Pictures from Bruegel and Other Poems, and Patterson. In his later years, Williams mentored and influenced many aspiring poets, one being poet Allen Ginsberg. It also goes without mentioning that Williams received a number of elite awards and honors, some of which include the National Book Award for Poetry, the United States Poet Laureate, the Boulanger Prize for Poetry, the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry, and the Academy of Arts and Letters Gold Medal. Wow. Williams suffered a heart attack in 1948 and then a series of strokes. He died on March 4, 1963 at the age of 79. Though his career as a poet was initially overshadowed by other writers of his time, Williams still paved the way for his poetry. His writing style and ideals continue to influence poets and readers of poetry around the world.
All right.
Style and ideals.
So, now that we've learned a little bit about the poet, Carlos Williams. You said, why was he a doctor? Well, the story doesn't tell us why he became a doctor, but sometimes we can have many interests in a lot of things, and I think that's good. That just means that he was interested in doing more than one thing, and I'm pretty sure he probably still practiced medicine and wrote poetry at the same time, and that might have even been some of his inspiration. I don't quite know that, but that's what I'm inferring. That's probably why. So, really quickly, I'll click on this poem so that you can hear a different version of This Is Just to Say, so that it draws in the expression and the imagery that I want to bring home.
This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious. So sweet and so cold.
Alright. Okay, so what do we think about that? You said the music helped you to understand a little bit more about the plums and how the little wet drops was expressing how cold they were. That's a good observation. Great, let's move on. All right, so now we're going to do some group work. I have a poetry mind map here, and you're going to work in groups of 4 for just a few minutes. And I want you to look up some literary devices. I've done one for you. Let's bring it into focus. Great, it's into focus. So here's one that I have started for you. It's on Canva. You can access it through your Google Chromebooks. And I started that very first one partially. I gave you the definition of literary device. Okay, and it says a literary device is a technique that writers use to enhance writing and convey meaning, ideas, themes in a story or a piece of writing or poetry. So what I want you to do is research the internet for these different literary terms. And right now, let's just do maybe 1 or 2. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And then I want you to either draw a picture of what you got out of it. Give you about 5 minutes to do that. And then you guys can discuss in your groups as well. Oh, time's up. Okay. Group 1 over here. What type of image did you draw for figurative language? Oh, you drew the cow jumping over the moon. Okay, all right, awesome. All right, group 2. What type of literary device example did you find? So you were thinking the plums, so you thought about juicy fruit gum, and okay, you were thinking about juicy lemons. Nice, okay, good. Okay, so you guys do have some type of idea of how this works. That's great, and we're going to be learning some more. All right, so now we're going to go to a little bit more of Images poetry, and in that video footage, that told us a little bit about the poet and the doctor, William Carlos Williams, gave us the definition of Imagist poetry. And we know that it is a minimalist style of poetry that uses clear, concise language to express, convey a precise image, as in these nice, juicy plums. So let's see. All right, now Wheel of Names. I am going to play a little game with you, and I'm going to call out your name, and then when I call your name out, I'm going to probably give a definition maybe, and maybe you can tell me what literary term I'm speaking. So I'm going to click Wheel of Names. Ah, Leah, it landed on you. Okay, this is an association with poetry that is clear and precise and conveys exactly the message it's trying to say. Yes, a literary device. Awesome, awesome. All right. Poetic devices defined. So here's a short video on poetic devices. So you guys are going to be working in groups. I'll split you into groups of maybe two pairs and fours. And some of you will work on these literary devices. And the others of you have a crossword puzzle that you're going to be working on here. All right, so it looks like my crossword puzzle was hidden from me. All right, so you've got the choice between these literary terms, group here, my group here. You can be watching the literary device terms on the video and then write down what you understand from that. All right, I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. Give you about maybe 5 minutes. Time, our 5 minutes are there. So, let's see. Marcus, how'd you do? What did you think about this puzzle? You thought it was a little difficult? Okay, that's okay. I'll help. We're going to work together, all together, and we're going to help each other to learn these terms. Again, I absolutely know that these are things that you probably have not seen or heard of before, but not to worry. We're going to be helping each other learn this information. Let's move on. So let's check our batteries. How everybody's feeling? Great, everybody's feeling great. We're pumped up and we can do some poetry for ourselves. So how about you guys have a little booklet in front of you. And this is going to be our little booklet where you can write some poetry in here. Oh, you want the orange one? Absolutely, you may have the orange one. And you can take some notes, draw pictures and illustrations. You like that bright green? Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any more of the bright green ones, but guess what? I have other colors and other options for you. So what I want you to do here is write an Imagist poem describing characteristics of yourself using 8 of the 12 literary terms that we have looked at. You guys have gone onto the mind mapping and you've researched a few of those things. Well, those terms are also in a word bank for you. And what I want you to do is create a literary poem, something that you know about yourself, using at least 8 of those terms. Terms can only be used once throughout your poem. And if you don't want to write something about yourself, maybe think of something that you know about somebody in your family. And I'll give you maybe 10 minutes to do that. All right, time. So, How'd you guys feel about that activity? It's fun? Okay. You didn't know too much about yourself? You know what? You're gonna learn a whole lot about yourself through poetry. You wrote about your mom and how she likes to bake nice apple pies, and those plums made you think about those pies. That's a nice association there. Absolutely, absolutely. And we're gonna be doing more of that. So, let's debrief really quickly. Here's your ticket out the door. Write a brief reflection on what you learned from this poetry lesson. Post your response in your Google Classroom. All right, and so guys, make sure you have, yes, you don't have a charger for yours? That's okay. Come over here and use this Chromebook. It's fully charged for you. And I'll give you maybe a few minutes of time before class ends. Time. All right. So, Kendra, what did you get out of this lesson today? At least one thing you can tell me. You told me, oh, you learned about William Carlos Williams and that he was a doctor. Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Stacy, what did you learn? You learned that, you learned about images and that it is a concise type of poem and that it expresses exactly what the meaning is. Okay, thank you. Very clear and concise. Thank you, ladies. Let's wrap it up with a preview of what we will talk about tomorrow. Onomatopoeia. That's a large, funny kind of sounding word, but look at that picture there. Think about that picture. Keep it in mind for tomorrow. We'll pick up with this tomorrow. And there you have it. Poetic devices. And we're good. Thank you. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.